Hi there. I brought you down to the beach, to a quiet spot, because I thought you and I could just talk about something that's important to you. I know we talk about your kids a lot, we talk about your child's needs, but it's actually really important to talk about the parent's perspective, so let's start there. The biggest thing that I do after we talk about your biggest problem when we work together is I ask, what do you want to see? Like, if you could tell me the behavior that bothers you the most, what would you most like to see instead? It's sort of like a wish or a goal. So for some people, that just like their biggest problem is, I just want to get dressed in the morning without a fight. Or their biggest problem could be, sometimes it's hard to narrow it down. Sometimes there's so many fights in a day, it's really, really hard to pick one. So they'll say something really general, like, I'm just really tired of fighting all the time. But it's some of those things, some of those fights are winnable and some of those fights are not. So whenever you can, if you want to start looking for solutions, look at those little situations piece by piece. Look at the putting shoes on and getting out the door separately than using the bathroom, separately from eating dinner, separately from getting along with the brother, because those don't all fall into the same category. It's not just about listening or being good. Those are all different skills in different situations. So you have to narrow it down a little bit to start with. Start by picking one. And then, since we're here and it's a beautiful place, we can sort of imagine, what would it look like? So for example, sometimes in our house, getting out of the door in the morning is a bit of a headache, because there's a lot of reminders and there's a lot of like, I just need to go and get this and I'm not leaving until I find this other thing that I didn't tell you I needed until just now. So what would it look like instead? The more specific we can be, the more helpful it is. So in my dream scenario, leaving the house would look like this. And it's funny because I can already hear myself being really, really unrealistic. So I'm in the process of trying to be rational. But I would like, for example, to say, okay, kids, 5 more minutes and you need to go get your shoes on. And then I set a timer and the timer says, beep, and I say, shoes on, and the kids say, okay, Mom, and they go downstairs, and without hitting each other or getting distracted, they put on their shoes. Like, to me, that little moment would mean a lot, because we do get hung up. There's several places we get hung up in that transition. So you see how specific it can be, how concrete it can be, but it's really, really useful to just start with that dream. Hi. So once we figured out what we want to see, let's dig a little deeper again and figure out why. Why do you want to see that? Because that's really important. Why is it important to you? Is it important to you because it's a skill that your child really needs to learn and he'll get in trouble at school if he doesn't learn it? Is it really important to you because you're a person who just really appreciates peace and you hate to argue? So that just makes a difference to your quality of life. That's legitimate. For some families, it's the question of respect. When you say no to me or when you ignore me, I feel disrespectful and that's really uncomfortable for me, and I think my child should learn to be respectful. Totally fair. It could just be coping. Like, sometimes I make a wish because I need something to go away that's just really, really hard to deal with, or it's really hard for my child to deal with. And I want life just to be a little bit better. It's not a big value, it's just, this is really hard. Can we make it better somehow? Okay, so now that we've figured out what we want to fix and we have this vision of what we want it to look like, it can feel a little scary, actually, to say, just to make that wish, to say, this is exactly where I want to be. And it may take 100 steps to get there, but what we're doing today is we're imagining that there are 100 steps and then looking at that very first one. What is the very closest you could get today? So for instance, I would like my children to just say, okay, Mom, and walk down the stairs and get their shoes on without any fuss. Right now, it's taking probably about 3 reminders and an escort. So what's the very next step that I could take? Maybe it could be just 2 reminders and an escort. Or maybe it could be 3 reminders, but I only walk halfway down the stairs. If you plan and you know where you're going and you can envision that very next step, it keeps you hopeful and it keeps you focused and it gives you something to appreciate. Because if you're waiting for that big goal to happen and you're still not seeing it, you might not notice the progress that you're making. So it's really good to be able to break it down. So for example, if I tomorrow see that progress and it wasn't what I imagined, but it was better, then I'll enjoy it personally, and I'll be able to say to my kids like, oh, hey, you guys really listened when I said, can you please go get your shoes? You started walking down the stairs right away. Thanks so much, guys. So this is what it looks like, basically, to see progress. This is how we break it down. I would love to make a difference in your life if you have one of those sticky moments. We can actually just talk about it on the phone for about 30 minutes and go through those first few steps, like what's the behavior that's bothering you the most? And if you have had a chance to think about it, you can share, like, what do you want to see instead? Okay. You can hit me up through Facebook, I'm here, or you can leave a comment and we'll organize something. If you have a question and you don't want to go through the whole treatment right now, that's okay. I still want to know what your question is because it gives me lots of ideas. So yeah, let me know. Let me know where you're at. What's your stickiest moment of the day? Okay, thanks. Bye.